I've always wanted to interview you because I feel in many ways my career has been quite like yours, you know, because I'm from Kinsale, you're from Bandon, both from, you know, West Cork-ish.
Yes.
I'm barely allowed it. We both had Guinness dads.
Was your dad?
He was a
So
Guinness,
did our
Guinness
dads know
related.
each other?
They probably knew each other. I'd say yours probably didn't like mine. He was a tough customer.
Okay.
We did English and French at UCC.
Oh my God, we actually have lived parallel lives.
And we both have wines. I have 2 bottles in the fridge. You have a whole label.
You know, I'd always wanted to write a book, but it was something about turning 50. You know those people who say, oh, I'd like to play the piano. And at some point you go, you know there's a way to do that. You could just learn and then play the piano. I don't want to listen to it, but you could learn. And so I thought, if I'm going to write a novel, I'm gonna do it. And there was something brilliant about waking up 52 being a debut something. Because you know when you're a kid, you kind of think 50, it's essentially, you know, it's shoulder adjacent.
I'm 53, I died.
Yeah, it is, like that is it. And so it was good to be reminded that actually you've got more time than you thought, and you can try new things, and you can succeed and fail, and you'll be okay.
And with that first one, because you hadn't written a book before, well, you had written autobiographies, but you hadn't written a novel, a fiction before. Did the story come to you in a blinding flash, or did you sit down, as you've just said, and sort of, I'm going to put the work in and write this?
I sat down and I'm going to write a novel. I didn't really know what it was. And then there was this story that I remembered. I was going for a walk with my mother and outside Bandon. And there was just a glint of light. I thought, what's that? And I looked back, and it was a bit of glass behind some foliage. And my mother went, oh, that's a house. And if you crossed the road and looked back, you could see nature totally taken it over. But there had been a house in there. And my mother told me this story about there'd been a farmer in there, and he'd had a housekeeper. And everyone assumed that he would make her an honest woman. And so she would, you know, go in. And, and then one day, she opened up the paper, and she saw the announcement of his engagement. Not to her, to someone else who had land.
Oh, well, they always have land, don't they?
And she went in to the house and cleaned it one last time, and then she locked that door, and no one ever went into that house again. And nature just grew up over it. And so I thought, I loved that story. And so I thought my first book would be a very kind of still, just, you know, the ticking of clocks, a sort of gentle, bittersweet romance that was very, very sad. And then I realized I can't write that. So I'll make it a murder mystery. And and a murder mystery was for a first-time novelist, it's good to have a framework, it's good to have a genre to be in.
Right.
Because I knew where I was. I knew you find a body, halfway through they find another body, at the end the detective's life is in danger, the end. But what I then discovered was, actually it was the other stuff I liked writing. It was the in-between stuff. It was the kind of the relationships, the kind of sad backstories. All of those bits were the things I liked writing. And there's still lots of plot in these books, but there's more of that other stuff.
I think that other stuff often is plot, and I think because you might see it as not something big happening, it's still so engaging. And in Forever Home, it's like, yes, the new book by Graham Norton.
Out now. But they have it, doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, they all have a copy. You all have it. You all have it. You'll
Nothing to sell here.
You'll see it. It's in
Why am
there.
I doing this?
Why are you? It's fabulous you're here. We're delighted to have you here, aren't we? And I love how you even make the houses are characters in that first bit. We kind of come along and we meet the inhabitants of each. You're building a world from the very get-go, and it's so enticing. And is it great to be God? Like, how good is it to build a world?
Well, it is.
Buildings, the whole
yeah.
lot.
But I mean, there is a weird. I can't remember. I was listening to a writer talking about this, and it is mad, that bit that before you start a book, none of these people existed. None of these houses were there. The town wasn't there. None of it. And at the end of your first day, even if you've written, 10 pages, it started. they now exist. They are in the world.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe that feeling, but it is a kind of, it was only when I heard someone else articulate it, I thought, oh yeah, that is what happens. And I guess that's part of the pleasure of writing, because it is it's a job, you know, in that you can't, it's one of the few things you can do where you pretend you don't care. You know what I mean? Because normally, if you paint a picture, kind of, yeah, I wasn't really trying. Or if you sing a song, kind of, well, I was a bit tired. But a book, you can't pretend you didn't try. Because even the worst book in the world, you had to sit down and go tippy-tappy, tippy-tappy. Particularly, mine's like tippy-tappy, tippy-tappy. So it's a lot of work. So there's a kind of almost like an emotional commitment to it, that when you give it to someone, you have taken it seriously because you finished it. And that's kind of exposing in its own way.
I love the way you've captured the music, like I was saying earlier. You really have captured. Can you still eavesdrop down in West Cork? Can you? I mean, you're Graham Norton, and you're beloved. I can tell you now, we've spies all over West Cork. He's beloved, absolutely beloved, and doesn't put a foot wrong, beloved. And of course, super well known. So can you just listen in on little conversations or snippets? Like a lot of authors will say, I sit on the bus and I listen, or I go to a cafe and I just listen, or do you have that luxury?
You do, because you are constantly hearing people, you know, in supermarkets, or, you know, the people on the till in front of you, or you're in the pub, or you're having drinks with people, you're out for dinner with people, you know, and they're telling you their stories and you're hearing those. And it's weird, because that's where I grew up, that kind of knowledge is just in you. You know, I did a book event here in Dublin, must be 4 years ago, because I didn't do any last time. And somebody said, oh, why do you set all your books in Ireland? And I was thinking, why do I set all my books in Ireland? And then it was sort of like a blinding flash, because I don't know anywhere else. Like, I can't set these books in England, because I don't know what the inside of a kitchen in Wiltshire looks like. I don't know what they sound like talking to each other. They.
What happens in the GPO? He used to go back over and do a show. Now.
So that's why I set them in Ireland. I mean, you will notice that the characters, as I get older, are getting older.
I love that about it, though.
No, but like, I don't know what young people sound like, so they're not in here. So I must meet some young people. So my books can have some young people in.
You have redeeming qualities in every character. And I heard your interview with Blind Boy, which was beautiful. Have the rest of you heard it? Have you heard it? If you haven't, it's a really gorgeous listen. You guys did it during lockdown. You said you find more kindness in your books than you thought you would put in yourself. I don't know if you remember saying that.
Yeah, no, I do. I think what I remember, because, you know, talk about writing, when I was younger, I did want to write, but I'm kind of glad that I waited till now, because I think the 20-year-old me would have written very kind of glib books and very kind of snarky, harsh, you know, I would have judged, or I would have been a much judgier author about the characters. and I think, in a way, maybe it's a flaw as a writer, that because you spend so much time with these people.
Yeah.
Like, even there's a character in this book called Killian, and he, at the beginning of the book, you think, oh, he is the baddie. And I thought of him as the baddie. But because you spend
some bad things.
Yes, but because you spend so much time with these characters, and you're putting them in different circumstances and different situations, you begin to have empathy for them. You begin to sympathize and see where they come from. So in the end, there are no out-and-out awful people in this book.
I certainly know that in West Cork, it can start off that people are it's very easy to find them friendly, but it's quite hard to make friends. There's a sort of a slight standoffishness, and people want to know. They want to place, like that beautiful bit you read, they want to place you. But Moira finds a way, then you find a way to put that in Moira's hands and make her an action hero.
Well, I think Moira's one of those women, and I think there's a lot of Irish women like this, that she shows her love through doing. She'd never tell you. But by the end of the book, you know that she does, because she goes all out to prove to Carol that she loves her. That gossip thing is weird, isn't it? Because I feel like in rural Ireland, we feel like we know everything about everyone.
Yeah.
And then things happen, and you go, oh, Jesus, we knew nothing about them. Like, these things happen in that house at the end of that lane. And what? We didn't know that was going on down there. I remember when we lived in Kilkenny, we used to get eggs from this house. And when I think back to it, it was insane. It was this house, the whole family lived in one room. There were other rooms, they just weren't in them. So you'd go through the front door, and it was like a stage set. There'd be like a playpen with a constantly screaming child, and like these children who looked like they'd probably dressed themselves days ago, and a stressed woman, and then a man would give us eggs, and me and my sister would look up, like it was like a horror film. We were just like, oh, and we'd run home with the eggs. And I feel like there's a lot of that in Ireland, where you think you know everyone, because you know who lives there, and you know who they're married to, where they go to school, you know what they do for a living, and you think, oh, I've got the measure of them. And you haven't. And you find that all the time, and, you know, when I'm back and you're reading the papers, and crimes are committed or things happen, and it genuinely comes as a shock as people. So it's a very odd thing, I think, in rural Ireland, where like people know everything and nothing at the same time. That's a novelist on Instagram. That's what that is. Here I am with my quill and a glass of red wine in the fire. I think, like, when you interview a real writer, they will often have I rise at 6, I do 500 words,
oh, yeah,
and then
vomit.
I have half a boiled egg, then I da-da-da. And I'm not that, so I don't really, I've got a laptop, and if I've got, I normally, I'd need a day. I don't do it if I've just got a few hours. I might go back and revise something if I've got a few hours, but I like a longer stretch of time than that. And then there are some bits of my year where I've got a few days, a couple of weeks, and then there will be a bit of a ritual builds up then. But where it is, it could be anywhere. It is the beauty of having a laptop. Zadie Smith, the novelist Zadie Smith, she has a house very near us in West Cork. And she saw that I was working away on the novel.
We'll find out who she's related to down there now.
And so she went, oh, you can write in the summer. Oh, I can't write in the summer. And I was thinking, isn't that amazing? I can write in the summer, and Zadie Smith can't write in the summer. And then I realized, oh no, the reason she can't write in the summer is because she's on her holidays. She's a full-time writer.
Well, that's the thing.
She's taken a break from writing the novels.